Ray. What do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
Chapter 6. Man, Natural-Born Creator. Verse. Success or failure is caused more by mental attitude than by mental capacity. Dr. Walter Scott, President, Northwestern University. As thought is creative and perpetuates its own likeness, we are natural and inherent creators throughout our lives. After survival, there is nothing as vitally important to our well-being as that of learning the effects of our thoughts. As this knowledge is still not widely known, most of us were taught in negatives instead of positives. It was don't forget instead of remember to, thus programming two negatives and setting the stage for a poor memory. We are told you are going to catch your death of cold, instead of wear your coat and stay warm. In this manner, our destructive thought patterns are passed down through the generations. This is reflected in alarming rates of illness and undesirable behavior. We should become keenly alert to the quality of our thoughts and know that they are creating their very likeness in our experience. As natural-born creators, we should groom our attitudes, which are thought patterns that have become habitual. Attitudes are emotionally charged, living, active forces that constantly reflect their qualities in our lives. We do not normally think of ourselves as creators. We do not recognize that all our mental activity is perpetuating its quality and creating our destiny. Through the true nature of life is mystical. For all practical purposes, it could be rightly said that life is for growth and enrichment. And the more we can learn of our creative nature, the brighter and more fulfilled will be our lives. Verse. In the creative state, a man is taken out of himself. He lets down, as it were, a bucket into his subconscious and draws up something which is normally beyond his reach. He mixes this thing with his normal experiences, and out of the mixture he makes a work of art. E. M. Forster. End of chapter. Chapter 7. Cavett Roberts, Human Engineering. Verse. The ability to deal with people is as purchasable a commodity as sugar or coffee, and I pay more for that ability than any other under the sun. John D. Rockefeller. J.J. didn't like his job. Every morning he went to work down in spirit, dragging his feet and dreading another boring day. He thought about how easy and unencumbered his life had been before he saddled himself with a family. If only he had waited until he could afford its heavy responsibility, hindsight was so much clearer than foresight. More and more he hated to go to work. It was affecting all aspects of his life. His energy was low. His digestion wasn't working, and he slept poorly. Its influence was also reflected in his wife and children. His wife was becoming estranged, and intimacy was no longer welcome in the bedroom. One day he was called to his boss' office to be told that his services were not an asset to the company. He had lost his job. The bottom had fallen out. How could he tell his wife? She wouldn't understand. How he hated to go home. Now followed months of job rejection, devastating to his confidence and self-esteem. His life declined on all fronts, and J.J. despaired of ever resolving his problems. Then one day there was a call from one of his friends at his former job who knew of his plight and who announced that the company had engaged some famous man named Cavett Robert to teach a seminar on success with people through human engineering. He asked J.J. to sit in on a lecture with him. J.J. was not interested and found every excuse not to attend. His friend persisted, and at last he agreed to go. At the seminar, J.J. was stirred by the clarity, wisdom, spirit, and dynamism of Mr. Robert. The man spoke so eloquently from his heart that everyone present felt that he was determined that each one of them should succeed in his endeavor. Never had J.J. been so shaken and so moved. In Mr. Robert's teaching, he recognized himself as having been a round peg in a square hole. He had transgressed all the laws of success. He had worked strictly for his salary with no concern for the welfare of the company. He now saw the folly of his former attitude and resolved to put his mind and values in proper order. J.J., now armed with Mr. Robert's guiding wisdom, reflected over his assets and liabilities concerning the workplace and found himself to be sadly lacking in assets. Pondering his likes and dislikes, he realized he must make a career change, but he was unsure about the direction. Discussing it with his wife, he decided to go to evening classes at a local school or college and seeing what was being offered in adult education. This proved to him to be an ideal solution, and he promptly enrolled in a subject that had long held his interest. Along with his studies, he surveyed the field of possible employment and targeted a company where he set his heart on working. Now he began to gather information about the company, its projects and needs. He went to their offices and asked for brochures, which he studied carefully. He went to the company cafeteria and struck up a conversation with an employee in the serving line. They sat together, and J.J. learned valuable information that enabled him to better prepare himself to be an asset to the company. J.J. now invested all his time assuming that he was already a valued employee, and the company, in his mind, he worked at his job with diligence and a great enthusiasm. One day he knew that the time was right, so he called the company and asked the personnel manager for an appointment in the department of his choice. Now, equipped with a precise knowledge, a success attitude, and aware that merit must precede reward, he persuaded the person in charge that his heart was set on working for this particular company, that he felt himself to be a valuable asset to the branch of their operation, and that he expected to be a leader in his field, a winner who would distinguish his department with honor. J.J. got the job. He had not even mentioned salary, but only that he wanted to prove his conviction that he would enhance and advance the company's purpose. Thanks to his friend who urged him to attend Mr. Roberts' seminar, where he received invaluable advice and guidance, J.J. worked his way to the top and is now chairman of the board of one of the country's biggest industries. Framed on the wall of his office is the following quotation: "Know what you do, love what you do, and believe in what you do, and success and money will come and play in your backyard." Cavett Robert, modern sage, international speaker, founder, National Speakers Association. End of chapter. Chapter 8. Fiction. Verse: "There is no fiction. Imagination is creative." Neville Goddard. The dictionary defines fiction as an imaginary statement or story, and imagination as existing only in the mind or unreal. But there is not yet a common dictionary definition or description of the natural laws of the mind and how fiction and imagination activate powerful forces in their own likeness. All that man creates, all progress and enrichment, as well as all that is destructive, is the product of imagination and fiction. It is strictly a matter of cause and effect. There can be no effects without cause, even though the latter may be completely unconscious. Wherever there is peace, progress, and desirable experience, it is a result of repeated imagination. All that is undesirable is created and set in motion by destructive imagination and its habit pattern. The nature and quality of thought is the nature and quality of experience. An interesting and highly important aspect of fiction is that the creative forces it sets into motion are not necessarily carried out and experienced by the author, although this is most likely. But somewhere a reader, director, performer, or someone deeply involved with the storyline will experience its desirable or undesirable consequence. There is a vast evidence of both these results. Studies have been made of those who are habitually involved with unsavory, sinister, or violent themes, and their lives have been shown to reflect various conflicts with the natural order of life. Conversely, those who are involved with life and harmony promoting themes reflect these elements in their experience. This book could be filled with the direct and detailed consequence of various fictional disasters, but this is not its purpose. Reference will be made to only one classic and familiar example, that of a book of fiction in which was described in minutest detail the place and circumstance of the sinking of a luxury liner that struck an iceberg in the North Atlantic. Its name and pronunciation could easily have been mistaken for the Titanic. Fiction is a detailed series of images projected upon the impressionable screen of consciousness. There is no inconsequential fiction. Thought sculpts and shapes its likeness into the fiber of our lives. Verse: "'Tis strange but true, for truth is always strange, stranger than fiction." Lord Byron. End of chapter.